Okay, let's go with this barn painting. Now we have the drawing done. I've lightly put in the main branches of where I want the trees to go. There's obviously a lot more branch going on up there, but I've left that out. And we'll probably do some dry brush and several layers, I think, to get those trees in. We've got the main picture of the main frame of the barn. Foreground I've left completely undrawn. We'll be doing that with some washes. There's some little bits of detail just around the base of the barn which we'll suggest, and there's this very important shadow here which I haven't penciled in. We'll be doing that in paint entirely. Okay, so let's start with the sky, and let me just say how we're going to progress with this. We're going to do the sky first, a nice blue graded wash fading out to the horizon, and I think then we'll start putting in a base layer of the blue roof and the red part of this side of the barn. There's this very dark shadow in here which will be layered on top, so we won't do that in our first pass. I want to leave some little sparkles of white paper here so we can go back in to add in some interest afterwards. And then we'll do another wash for the foreground in this. I do like this colour, it's this kind of faded yellow colour here. And then while it's wet, we'll drop in some darker colour to suggest some of the grasses here. Maybe do a bit of spraying and texture on it to give it a bit of interest. Okay, so let's start with my nemesis, the graded wash. I will try and get this halfway decent. I'm going to use a quill for this, a nice big brush. You don't absolutely have to use something as big as this. If you've got a nice 12 round, this would do, but since I've got this one handy, let's use that. Now the colour of this, I'm going to use, I think, let's try some Cobalt for this, and I might actually get out another palette. Here we are. Just so I can get a nice lot of paint on here, which is this is just a tin palette. All right, now this is pure Cobalt. Now we want it to be fairly dark at the top, and then fade down as we get to the horizon. Now that's pure Cobalt at the moment. I'm just going to get a swatch piece of scrap paper. Now this is pure Cobalt, which I think is probably going to be, it might be okay. But I'm just going to take that colour and I haven't got any water in my dish. Just add in a teeny tiny bit of black, almost imperceptible, just to take the brightness of that blue off very slightly. I want to make sure I have enough of this. Now I tend to screw up on this quite a lot, but okay. Now let's try our graded wash. A nice big brush full of paint, and I'm going to go across from left to right in one sweep, and she says doing 2 sweeps, and then I'll come down. I'm not adding any water yet, just overlapping. I'll allow myself 2 sweeps. Just overlapping the previous stripe so they blend. And now, as we're wanting to make it slightly lighter, I'm adding in just a little bit of water to make it slightly paler, and then dipping my brush in the water. Really getting quite, I'm not adding, I'm just putting my brush in the water, making it paler, pulling it across and hoping it's not too stripy. And I'm going through everything here. This is going to dry back quite light, and everything pretty much on top of it is darker, so I don't need to worry, and I can get a nice smooth graded wash. And I'm going down to the horizon and stopping there. Right, now that goes quite fast. You have to work pretty fast for that because you don't want it to dry. I've left one little sparkle, but that's okay. Right, now I'm going to let that dry, so I'm just going to put it on pause and let that dry and come back. Okay, so he's pretty much dried. I had an annoying drip at the side. I hadn't put my tape down hard enough. It's not looking too bad, I have to say. Graded washes are not my strong point. I should practice them more, but we're good. I'm okay with. I'm okay so far. Right, so the next things we're going to do, we're going to put in a nice even wash for the blue roof. If you look at the photo, there's a lot of detail on that roof, and I don't know whether we'll put in a little bit of the markings, but probably not a huge amount. And we're going to do a nice reddish wash for the side of the barn, which will take over here, but not make it darker just yet. We can do another layer to make it darker later. Okay, now let's have a look at this roof. It's a blue, and it's more purpley blue than the sky. So I'm going to shift to my purpley blue, a bit of ultramarine, but it's not bright ultramarine. It's not pure ultramarine, and I'm looking for my colour isolator. Here it is. Now, so I put that over there. It's fairly light. We want a little bit of contrast with the sky, but we don't want to make it hugely dark because we've got these lovely dark trees and the shadows. So we want to make it. Look at this. When it's lighter, so this grey piece of card. This is a mid value, so a value 5, with 10 being lightest and 1 being darkest. So it's actually at the top. It's pretty much a mid value. So let's try and get fairly close to that. I'm going to go down to my 10 round for this. So let's have a look at this colour. A bit of ultramarine. Now that's going to be too bright. You can see that just by how it looks on the palette. I'm gonna grey that down just with a little bit of black, just to take punch out of that colour. And my swatch paper. Let's have a look at this. Okay, now I think that's pretty good. It was only a little tweak in the colour there, just to take it out from the standard ultramarine. Now we want to get this nice and straight up here, which it isn't. I'm trying to leave it nice and wet so I don't get stripes. Now this at the top. I made enough, it'll come down. And I know there's shading on this roof, but we can layer over that later. Can't quite see my pencil marks there. There we go. I've left a few sparkles, which I think are okay. Just tidy up that edge. Okay. Now that looks pretty dark there, but I think it's going to dry back. We've got a way to go value-wise, and our trees are going to be fairly dark. One thing I might do, I think I might just put a bit of spray on this, just to add a little bit of texture. Probably won't notice that much when the painting's finished. And I know that's not actually what's here. I just want to break up that colour a little bit. Okay, right, and that again went fairly fast. Yeah, I think that colour's fine. You want to leave a little bit of space because these panels are angled, so this will be slightly darker, and when it's dry we'll put over just a very light wash just to take that slightly darker. Also this one is slightly darker, so we'll put a slight wash just to take those slightly darker to show the form. Okay, right, now let's have a look at this red on the side of the barn. Now there's lots of verticals in here which we're not going to think about just yet, but I do want to get this colour. It's hard to pick. It's a red, obviously, but it's kind of a dulled red. I'm not sure. It's not a pinkish red, it's not an orangey red. It's kind of in the middle, so I'm gonna take some of my orangey red, which for me is vermilion. You might have something like cadmium red or naphthol red. And I'm gonna add in a little bit of my pinkish red just to change it a little bit. Now if I put that on a piece of paper, I think that's going to be, I don't know, I'm just going to say it's going to be too bright, but I think I had a little bit of blue left on my brush. I think I might just go with that. Let's go with this. I was going to say maybe it needs to be dulled down a little, but I don't think so. Right, now it's pretty much the same as we did for the roof. We're just going to go over the whole thing. There are no white pieces in here, or none that I'm intending to put in. So I'm putting it in as evenly as I can. I'm not worrying about that. These windows we can paint over later. I do just want to leave at the bottom, painting over these trees might be a mistake. Try and get that fairly vertical. I'm just going to go into this piece, side of the barn, because there is a piece of light on there. Paint around that tree, I think. Just a bit more water, just to put a bit of colour on here. And it's going to look flat. It's not going to look like anything at the moment. Just roughing up this bottom edge a little bit. And I think I might just lift a little bit out of these trees, just where the main trunks are. I don't think it really matters. And again, I think just a little bit of spray on this side of the barn. A bit of it is dry, that's okay. Just to give it a little bit of interest. It looks kind of stark at the moment, but once we get the darks in, I think we will be fine. Okay, right, let me just stick this back up here. There's a little bit of distant sort of trees and, you know, maybe the odd hillock at the back. And I want to put something just across the horizon line to indicate that. And that's this kind of purpley. Now on the photo it's quite dark, but I'm going to make it lighter than it actually looks. It'll push it back. And we want a nice sort of dull purple. So my purpley blue, my ultramarine, and a little bit of my pinkish red, my permanent rose. Now, this will be far too bright. Yeah, we can't, well, we could put it on, but I think it needs to be toned down a little more. A little bit of black. Now the black, I'm only using teeny tiny bits of black, so it doesn't take the value down too much. If it does take the value down, you can always add in a bit of water to lighten it up again. I'm just going to put, and actually I'm going to make it slightly lighter. I might have to pick you up. Okay, here we go. Just in the background. No, I think that might be too punchy. And I'm leaving the bottom edge quite rough. I want some, I can, if there's too much white in there, I can always go back and fill it in. I'm going to smooth the top edges of these just to soften them. I'm washing my brush quite a lot when I'm softening because I don't want to pick up pigment and redistribute it. I'm being quite sploshy here. And then we can just do the other side. And this has a little bit of ground back there, which I do want to keep. And then again, soften that top edge. Okay, there we go. Right. In the finished painting, I don't think you even really notice that. I think I might need a bit more colour over there, but I'm going to let that dry first. We can always revisit. Okay. And now we need to do the first wash on this foreground. Now this colour is kind of a very greyed out yellow, and this can be quite tricky to mix up. It's tempting just to say, oh, it's kind of a dull yellow, let's just use yellow ochre and be done with it. That is going to be too bright, I think. Let's get some yellow ochre out. Yeah, because that's too bright. Then if I bring this down, so here you see it's light, if you contrast it against the grey, and it is very, very pale. So this isn't going to cut it. However, I do want a fair amount. I've got a fair bit of paper to cover. So I'm going to take it back again with a little bit of black, and that will just, again, take the punch out of the colour. Now that looks fairly dark, but I reckon if I put it on a piece of paper, it's not going to look very dark. Yeah, actually, I think it needs to be slightly lighter. I'm going to need more of that. can be quite surprising how grey these colours are. Okay, let's try this. Oh, that's going to dry lighter. I'll try not to put my paper on the wet painting. Yeah, okay, let's try with this. Now I'm going to go quite broadly across. I want to leave some sparkles on the paper. I'm going to be quite brisk as I come across here, so I can leave some nice sparkles. And it's looking pretty dark there, but it will, because it's so wet, this paint, it will dry back. And I actually think maybe I could have gone a little greyer. Right, now we're going to put, I think I'll put a little bit of spray. I'm hoping this isn't going to dry too. I'm going to put some thicker paint through this, and hopefully this will be wet enough. So that's yellow ochre, a bit of burnt umber and ultramarine in there, and it's thicker. You can see it's thicker on the palette. I want to make this do we have it? We have it around. I might leave these bits of trees, maybe a little bit on there. I think it was quite wet enough. Right, a bit of spray. And when you do this, it always looks incredibly dark to start with. But as there's so much water on there, it will dry back. These ones, I just smoosh these up a bit. I'm being a bit tentative here. Having the video camera on always does that. I would probably right, I'm just going to do a bit of splattering. If I have enough paint, which I don't. Come on. Palette knife. Right, if I just bash it on this. It's not really, it needs some more over here, but I think I'll wait until that's dry, tidy that up. Okay. I'm kind of thinking, woo, far too dark. But I just have to trust that, as it always does, it dries back a lot lighter. A bit more spray, just to break up the edges a bit. I might need to put another zigzag on that, just to make that lead into the barn a bit better. I don't want to do that right now though. Okay, right, another pause section, because I need to let this dry so I don't drag my arm over it. Okay, just putting it on pause. Okay, so he's not quite dry, he's almost dry. I think we're okay so far. It's looking fairly flat, which is how he should be looking at the moment. We want these nice, fairly even washes. I know we've got texture in here, but fairly even washes with fairly similar values, because we're now going to go in and put in some darks. I think this foreground will need some attention at the end, but I'm going to wait until we've done the trees before we start attacking that. So let's put in some darks, and let's have a look at this piece of the barn. We've got these lovely dark windows on the side of the roof, and also this lovely shape here. Now, some of these we want to make fairly dark. Like under here, I think we're going to be pretty dark. And down the side. Over here, it's very dark on the photo, but I'm probably just going to lighten it up slightly. So this dark, I'm going to make this slightly purpley. You can't really, it looks basically black on the photo. So I'm going to make ultramarine and a bit of permanent rose, and probably a bit of, let's have a bit of burnt sienna in there. A bit more blue maybe. Too much, a bit more burnt sienna. And the consistency of the paint is quite thick here. Actually, I'm not going to use that brush. I'm going to use this brush. I was using a sable before. This is a Skoda Perla synthetic brush, which has a nicer point. Doesn't have too much. Doesn't hold too much water, which when you're doing precise things is more of what you want. So I'm noodling with the colour here. Right, yeah, it's sort of it's a dark purpley colour, and we're gonna crisply do these windows and the top of this barn. And as usual, I'm just trying to touch the paper just once to put these values in. Paint is dark, but it's still quite wet and it's flowing. And it's almost calligraphic. Let's put this stripe down here. And yeah, I'm just looking at it, and I think the value for the side walls was good. Alright, just leaving a couple of gaps just to provide a bit of interest. And one thing I think I might do, these windows are looking a bit stark. I think I'm just going to pull out a little bit of colour. So this is a clean damp brush, just taking all the excess water off with a paper towel. I'm just going to take out and loosen the edge of that window, maybe down here, just to soften those dark lines. I don't want to do too much, but just enough might be to just enough to break up the starkness of those shadow pieces. Right, there's another little shadow piece I've forgotten up here. Alright, there we go. Okay. Yeah, okay. Now we need to do this shadow over here. I'm going to go back to my bigger brush, my my 10 round here, and it'll be the same colour. So I've got my ultramarine, my burnt sienna, which will make up a fairly neutral grey, and then just a little bit of red, just to make it kind of purpley. Now, try not to mess this up. I think I want to leave, there's some little whites in here, so I'm going to just leave a little bit. And this comes down. Right, now I'm just going to take a clean brush, just pull down some stripes here, just to make that shadow in there. And now I put more water on my brush to do this bottom piece of shadow. And I'm making the bottom fairly rough. Just lifting up a bit of, I don't want a hard edge down there, so I'm just using the brush to pick up colour where I think there's too much. How's that looking? Yeah, I think that's okay. There is a value change between here and here, which we don't have in yet. I'm going to wait until this is dry and then glaze over that, so we get this nice sharp edge of the building. Okay. Right, okay. Just another pause just to let this bit dry. And then we get to my second nemesis, if you can do that, which is trees. If I can find the pause, which I can't. There we are. Okay, we're back. I think he's fairly dry. These pauses are quite useful actually, because you can go away, have a glass of water and come back and look at it with slightly fresh eyes. I'm pretty happy at the moment. I think our darks have worked well. The colour is working well. I like this, even though it's like we've got red, yellow and blue. We've modulated the colours slightly so they have slightly more interest to them and they're not too punchy. I like that. There's nice texture here, and it doesn't detract from the shadows on the barn, which is nice. I think this foreground is actually going to be fine. My stripy wash, of course, is a travesty, but maybe someday I'll get good at those. Right, now, trees. These are hard. One thing about these trees is it's tempting, and I've made this mistake many times before, is to look at them and think, well, yeah, they're very dark, let's make them very dark. And this is a mistake to do. If you look at them, we've got the light is coming from over here. There's a lot of shadow and light and shade on these trees, and the branches cast shadows over. There's dark spots, light spots. So I find it easier to go in fairly light to start with and get the basic shape of the main branches in, and then go back and put in dots of dark to indicate the shadows. So that's for the main branches. These itty bitty branches now, I think we might actually start by trying to put in the main sort of envelope of these trees. We're not going to paint in every single branch. we want to indicate that there are branches there, and we're gonna use a combination, I think, of dry brush and very light washes. So I'm going to take my 10 round. I'm going to mix up what colour, sort of a brown. I'm going to go kind of a brownish grey. So I've got ultramarine, burnt sienna. It's yellower than that. Let's put in a little bit of yellow ochre as well. Now I'm going to make this just a brush full of water over here. Now this is going to be tricky. What I want to do is to put a light wash with very broken edges just at the outside pieces of that tree. So I have my very light colour, which I hope is light. Yep, that's light. But I'm going to just dab it on a paper towel so I don't have much liquid on there, and I'm hoping I can pull this, too much water, over the outside just to indicate. It's amazing how little water you need. I want pale paint, but I want it very dry. And I'm just kind of tickling the paper just so the brushes, and my brush is basically flat on the paper. I want it to be very light. Now that looks quite dark on the camera. It's much lighter in real life. I don't know if that comes through on the final video. But my edges, my paint is very pale, and my edges are broken. Just a few bits in here. Now this tree comes out, and there's quite a lot of foliage. Not foliage, it's not foliage, is it? Branches. And it's not just at the top. You can see there's lots of little branches down here as well, which also you can just indicate. And I'm using my paper towel to take off any excess. Now, I'm probably going to work quite a lot on this. I'm being quite tentative because I want to get it right. And I find I have to work trees up very gradually. And we can always go back in and put in more. Taking it out is tricky. Some branches here. This is very subtle. You can almost not see what's going on here, but it will all register at the end. Just tickling the paper. Whereas there's quite a bit here. And we haven't put any of the main branches in yet. We will put the main branches in, then we'll probably come back and do some more. Let's do the rest of them while we're here. Now this one over here. taking paint off my brush, or it's moisture that I'm taking off my brush. Now these are very brushy up here, aren't they? Probably shouldn't use my best sables for this, I have to say. Yeah, it's looking kind of spotty, isn't it? But I'm being tentative to start with, and building it up piece by piece. Now, you might not have a brush that can do this. You have to experiment with what you have to see what works and what doesn't. Yeah, I think we need to put some branches in to see whether that will work or not. One brush I do have that can be useful is this, which is just a hardware store 1/2 inch bristle brush. John Lovett uses these a lot, and I've hacked around the bristles so it's all uneven, and you can get some nice spotty, ragged effects with this. Let's just see what, yeah, that's kind of nice. The combination actually I kind of like. You don't absolutely need this, but a bit too much there. Right, now I should probably stop playing around with this and get these main branches in, because otherwise I'm going to end up with tree lollipops, which is very bad. Okay. We absolutely have not finished this at all. Right, let's put in some branches, and I'm going to go back because we're going to do some fairly precise, almost calligraphic work. I'm going to go back to my synthetic Escoda Perla brush. I'm going to use pretty much the same colour. So I've got ultramarine, burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre, and make that slightly too thick, I think. And having another brush handy, clean brush for smoothing or just softening some edges, just have that on the side. Now, I'm going to start putting in the main trunks, and I don't want it to be, yeah, that's about the right value. I can still see through the paint. It's probably going to dry back probably to a mid value. It's not very dark yet at all. And I'm putting paint down and I'm smoothing it, the edges, so I can get some nice texture in there. Don't like that colour at all, it's too dull, a bit more yellow ochre maybe. But I'm not making them too dark yet. And if you look at branches on trees, they're quite angular. There are curves in them, but they will go straight for a bit and then suddenly change direction, and maybe with little knobbles on. And the other thing, oh, I should probably take the brush out of my mouth. I'm not if it is a straight line, I often put a break in it. A completely unbroken dark straight line often doesn't read very well. You need to make the viewer do a bit of work. Now this is going to be tricky because I'm concentrating hard on this and I find it almost impossible to talk and do this. So. Some comes out. Now when they get smaller, I'm using the point of the brush, holding it fairly back on the fairly far back on the handle, and soften that out a bit. You can see it's my paint is not very dark, but they are reading not bad. Now I'm tempted to put in shadows as I go along, and I'm resisting. So, and I'm just putting in the main branches here. And this one kind of goes almost at a right angle across here. I'm building it up. There's a lot of branches going on in this tree, and we won't end up putting all of them in. We just want to put in enough to make it look as though there's a lot of branch there, but there isn't. This is my smoothing brush. It's just got clean water and the excess taken off on a paper towel. I don't know about, well, you see, at this point I'm thinking, oh, I don't know. Although, to be honest, if it were easy and predictable, it would not be enjoyable. I think I need that to be slightly lighter out here. This one here. I'm not thinking about, well, I suppose I'm kind of thinking about shadow patterns because I am darker on this side, but I just want to get just the shapes of the branches and a little variation in value across them. It's this one here. How's that looking? It's kind of, it's a start, and this is going to take a long time. Right, now I just want to put in the main branches like this. Let's move over to this one. We're going to do a lot more in there. I just want to get this one in to see how they work together. And I want them to kind of join up a little bit, just so they connect together across this bit of sky. This one up here. I think it does get easier the more you do it. You kind of learn what the tree is trying to do. But the thing I'm absolutely not doing is colouring in the trunks. No. Oh, I don't know. See, at this point I'm thinking, ooh, I don't know. Right, now there's one that comes really right across there, isn't it? It comes up from here. Oh, I was using I found a brush that was very good for this. Oh yes, I should. This is another brush. I very rarely use this brush. I think I will get it out. It's a Dagger Brush, and it has very nice, you can get very thin, smooth lines with it. Okay. Let's leave that for now. Let's put these ones in. And if the branches kind of merge with the shadows, I don't mind that. I don't want it to look as though the tree is cut out and pasted on. Yeah, I think it does get easier. Kind of flows better. Yeah, this brush is okay actually. It's okay. Just soften that a little bit. I'm just going to stand back and see what I think I may have a bit of a situation in there. Okay. Yeah, okay, well, I think we're good. I think we're okay. Now, let's do these left-hand side ones. sort of straight lines, then a little bit of a bobble, and then they change direction. You can see the pattern of growth. These trunks, they're growing straighter, and when they fork, the angle between them seems to be a lot less. Try not to overdo the number of branches right now, because at some point fairly soon I'll go back in and we'll start adding in branches where the painting needs it to make some good shapes. Yeah, this is okay for these little branches, but I think I will try out my Dagger Brush in a bit. Yeah, it's looking a bit stilted, isn't it? But as long as you're not putting in too much detail too early, I think you should be okay. Let's put something in here. Just want to make that. Right, okay. Well, that's a start on these trees. It really is just a start right now. Now, let me show you this Dagger Brush. It's not a particularly expensive brush, I don't think. It's a Princeton Neptune 1/4 inch dagger, and it's kind of it's long and it's angled, so you get this lovely point on it, and it's very flexible. Now I'm going to stand back and see what this needs. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Let's try putting in some extra branches. I think the branch pattern is okay. I think the shapes are okay. But we need a bit more substance to them. Right, now this is fairly light, very light value. And you can have very thin lines and quite a lot of control. Now, what do we do here? Let's try and just look at the top. Yeah, it's a really nice line they have. I can do little dots as well, which I feel always help with branches. And I'm using the photo basically as a guide. I'll think, well, I need some branches around here, and I'll just pick out a bit of tree and get an idea for the rough shape of things. this, I penciled this in, so I should probably paint it. So a stubby end of a branch there. Phew. And these are very light lines. The paint is quite pale. It's quite watery, this paint. Might need to mix up a little bit more. Might be a bit too watery even. But we can, if the lines are too light once they're in, it's fairly easy to go back and darken them up a little. I find the forks, they're often darker. Right, I need a bit more paint. Okay. And let's go out here. And even though this is it's quite nice to paint with, I'm putting my little finger on the paper just to steady it a bit more. It really is only good for very thin lines. How are we doing? Let's concentrate down here. I mean, up here, I think if this bit is working, I think the top bit will be fine. Just putting in some. This is not the right brush to do this with. But get a smoothing brush just to take out hard edges. Okay, what are we doing for time? I might have to cut this short and finish this bit later, and then we'll finish off the rest. Put some detail in here. You can get some very nice thin lines with this brush. I have to say, usually the brush doesn't make a huge amount of difference. There is no magic brush, but I think this is close as it gets to a magic brush. feistier now. I think just a few more. This might be something where you have to do a bit, let it sit, come back, have a look, and then do a bit more. I'm getting kind of branch blindness. Right, I'm standing back again. Yeah, well, I like the shape of the tree. I think that the shape of the tree is nice. It's got a nice sort of kind of organic branching structure. It's not looking too rigid. A lot more work needs to be done on these branches, but I think that's just a case of spending the time. Now I've just put a few bits and pieces up here. These ones are straighter over there. This may be a case of not being very careful when you actually stop as well. Got a forked dagger, and branches kind of come off in sorts of directions, and it's easy to forget that. I think I'm probably gonna, maybe a little more over here. So now we put these branches on, I'm now looking at it and thinking, yeah, we do need some more heft up there. It's looking a little sparse. I'm going to use this bristle brush just to add in, because now we've got the framework for the branches, we can now decorate it with some dry brush to show what colour do I want. This is ultramarine and burnt sienna. It's basically a grey. It's not a particularly interesting colour. Now, let me see. I'm dabbing. I want it to look less as though you can basically see all my individual brush marks at the moment, which I don't want to happen, and join these areas up. Get a little more water on that. It's So the bits I put in earlier, they're kind of quite broad areas, and I'm going over just with little stipples, and the combination of the two things I think works pretty well. Try not to make it too spotty by joining all these areas up. I'll leave this bit fairly clear so we can see the window. Is that working? Yeah. I think that's okay. There's some colour through here, because the branches don't just occur at the tops of trees. They do happen all the way through. Standing back. Yeah, it's going to need more work, but I think we're getting there. Put some just over here. This is quite thick paint. I'm seeing if this makes a difference. Try some over here. Maybe slightly too thick. I think it takes quite a bit of experimentation with. Oh, there's this bit over here which we didn't put much in. I think I'm gonna just finish this little bit and put the brush down for these trees, because I'm getting tree blindness. Of course I have to do just one last little bit. So I'm going to join those two bits together. Okay. Right, stop it. Right, brush down. Okay, so those trees aren't finished, but let's finish the rest of it. Let's have a go at this roof. These are kind of quite subtle changes, little finishing flourishes. I just want to put very light glaze over the roof just to show that it's slightly different angles to the light. And I'm going to use my 10 round, and we just want this one is slightly darker than here. And then this one is also slightly darker, so I just want a little glaze, probably pure ultramarine will be fine here. We've got the base colour on, so we don't need to make it too different, maybe a little different. Just want to make it very slight value change there, just to show that there's a change of angle on that roof. Pretty subtle, and I think I've just about got that straight. And this bottom one as well. This one looks slightly purpley, so I'm going to make it just a little bit of permanent rose in my ultramarine. And again, just pull it across. Very pale. Just enough to change. Yep, I might actually be. It's going to dry lighter, so I think we'll be fine. Now we have this middle strip, which has quite a lot going on. We've got these fences. Probably want to darken up the base of these trees. There's some stuff over there, sticks and stuff. So let's put some of that stuff in. It doesn't have to be anything recognizable. So I'm mixing up, this is sort of a generic dark, so burnt sienna and ultramarine, and I'm just going to go across the bottom, just add in just little dark marks, just to indicate there's stuff going on. And so this is blue over here, but I forgot to paint that bit. Just marks. And compositionally, I always like these little bits. They give nice bits of detail. There's don't quite know what this is back here, but it's going in. And there's something going on back here. It's a plank leaning against the wall. I'm just kind of glancing just to get a rough, slight idea of the shapes, and my glances are so quick I don't have time to register what things are. I'm not even sure I can tell what things are. Right, let's have a go at this. There's a fence back here, isn't there, which I kind of like. And this fence is unbroken, of course, but I'm putting in broken lines for it. And the value is not, it's a dark fence, but it's the value against the background is not actually that different. Then we come over here. If you get the values right here, you can do all sorts of things. There we go. And it adds, I think it adds quite a lot. But you really don't have to do very much. Okay, just a little bit of, remember this colour we had here? I just want to put a little bit more colour along this middle strip that has all the little dibbly-dabbly bits. So, what was it? Yellow ochre, burnt umber, and ultramarine. A bit more yellow ochre. A little bit of water. I'm gonna take most of that colour off. I want it to be kind of really quite dry brushy here. Skimming it over the surface so you miss out lots of the little divots of the paper and leave little sparkles behind. And if you leave too many sparkles, it's fine, because you can always go back and fill them in again. And over here. I don't want to ruin this. It's getting to the point where I'm thinking, don't ruin it, Clamp. Don't ruin it. Right, I'm going to stand back. Don't want to put in too much. Right, I'm going to leave that there. Right, a couple of extra things. I know we've got to go back and finish these trees. This bit, which I forgot to paint, I'll just put a light wash in that. Just to take the colour off, just take the white of the paper off. This foreground piece, I think, switching to another brush, just put a little bit over, and that's the reason it never got painted over here, is because the palette was in the way. I just want to put a bit in, just to take that to the edge. And a clean brush just to soften. And I think I want a diagonal this way, just lightly, just to lead that foreground piece to the main subject. And that's looking fairly dark because it's wet. I think that's going to dry back almost to nothing, but it will still read. Okay, some little pieces of white paper. Take off. Okay. Right, I'm going to stop the video there. I will finish these trees, but we've been going for a while now, so I will leave it. I think I'm good. Yeah, that purple. Maybe that should have been slightly less. But anyway, I will leave it for a bit and come back and maybe work on the trees a little later. Okay, so I'm going to finish off this barn painting, and it's mostly just trees. Now, at the end of the last video, we did a bit of detail just around the base of the barn, just to make it look as though there was something there. Ordinarily, I would leave that right to the end, but I just wanted to get that in at the end of the last video. I'm going to finish these trees. They're not looking too bad. I kind of like the shapes of the trunks. There's some nice light and shadow on here. This very light, jagged edged, rough edged work up here is working pretty well to suggest branches, but I think they're still looking a little sparse. I want to put a bit more, just to indicate a few more branches in here. I don't want to replicate the photo, so here's the photo. I mean, there's a lot going on here. We're not going to put in all of these branches. But I think it's looking just a little sparse and needs a bit more. And when we do this, you have to be careful not to do too much. So pretty much every stroke you put down, I'm going to reassess how it's looking. Is it working? Does it need more? Should I stop? Okay, so now my brushes I'm going to use is my 10 round, which is a sable. Make that, see if he's pointing fairly well. Okay, he's pointing fairly well. Then I've got my bristle brush, which is nice for the stippling. And my Dagger Brush as well for these very thin branches. You don't have to use a Dagger Brush for that. This one, a pointed, this synthetic, it's got a lovely point on it. There we go. Would probably work just as well, but I kind of like the feel of the Dagger Brush, so I'm going to be using that. Right, okay. Now, I'm going to leave these main branches. I think we're good with those. But I think a little bit more detail, and I'm going to put in some small branches over here just to put a bit of detail where the dry brush is, just to indicate some small branches. Now, right, now I've got my Dagger Brush out, but I'm going to mix with my sable. Dagger brushes aren't great at mixing. And I'm going to mix up a pretty neutral colour. So I'm going to use my burnt sienna. I know I need more paint in here, but I'm trying to use it all up. Okay, that's probably good. I'm going to make it fairly, I don't want it to show up too dark. I can always, it would be nice to get it the perfect value when it goes down, but I don't know that I'm going to manage that. And so just to check that, I'll just get a piece of scrap paper just to check what this is going to look like. This is my dagger. It's fairly loose consistency on the palette there. And I think that might be too brown. There's a bit more blue in there. Yeah, I'm going to try that. I don't want it to be too dark. Let's try that. Let's put you down. Right, now let's have a look as to where we want to put some branches. Now if I'm looking, this is looking a little bare in here, so I think some branches need to go in here. And just a few over the top up here. And maybe just some subsidiary branches off the main ones. But I don't want to do too much. I don't want to fill it all in. Now does that branch carry on? Let's... Yeah, I need some more blue in that. It's not grey enough for my taste. And it does produce a lovely thin line, this brush. Just looking, I'm not directly copying the branches from the trees. I'm looking at the painting, seeing, well, I want to put some branches in here, and then just picking a piece of tree that has roughly the kind of branches I want and taking my guidance from that. Actually, yeah. So they're not all very thin branches I want to put in. And every time I put in a few branches, I take a look back at it just to see what it looks like. I do want to put something in here. I think it might need some dry brush going in here, just a little bit. And the branches on trees, they don't just go in a forked pattern because it's a three-dimensional tree, so they will cross each other and go every which way. And they often change direction very abruptly. Alright, and I'm just going to noodle on with this. Don't know that there's much really I can say as I do this. Trying to keep these very thin, and they're not particularly dark, these ones that are being put on. The paint is quite fluid. And transparent when it goes on. And almost every few strokes I'm leaning back and seeing what it looks like. The thing I'm most worried about is doing too much. I'm making it too dense. Alright, I think that something needs to come. I think I need some more, maybe some more dry brush through here. Yeah, you see, I'm getting to the point I'm thinking, probably don't want to do too much more over there. I also find it very hard to talk and do this. Even though it kind of looks repetitive, it takes a lot of concentration. Yeah, I think I'm coming close. You see, I can't talk. Coming close to probably having pretty much enough. Wow, that didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. Although I may stand back in a minute and decide more needs to be done. No, in fact, I'll stand back now. Yeah, I think maybe branch-wise we're okay. Let's put some more on here. Just want to put a few more forks, a bit more branch structure here. Just to make it look a little fuller, although I don't want to mask the barn that's going on behind it. I can probably go do a bit more over here. It's another one of these things that you can go wrong quite quickly if you put too big a branch in the wrong place. It doesn't need to be too precise over here because there's a lot going on behind there. Right, I'm getting a bit brush happy. Right, okay, that's that. Yeah, and actually I think branch-wise I'm good with those. Maybe this does need just a little more, just to darken these down a little. Okay, let's leave that there for now. Let's have a look over this left-hand side, see what's going on. They're a bit sparse over here, so I think we do need to work on them a little more. A bit more paint. Again, ultramarine burnt sienna. I'm going to leave that slightly thicker so it'll be slightly darker when we put the branches in. Now, they mostly go up, but there is quite a bit of going in odd directions. The only thing about this dagger brush is it's hard to put thicker branches in. Just adding in a few more trunks here. Now here, that's looking better, isn't it? But you have to assess it every few strokes or so. It's a very fine line between having too few and too many. And I'm remembering to cross over the branches so they don't all look as though they're just spraying out from in 2 dimensions. And I'm wondering, do I need any dry brush on here? I'm not sure I do, actually. Right, let me stand back. Let me just take that palette away so I can see the whole thing. Yeah, I know. I thought this was going to be a long job. But I think I'm pretty happy with. I'm getting to the point where I'm worried if I do more, I'll ruin it. Let's just do this little one at the front. It takes a bit of practice. It's a very light touch, this, and I'm still experimenting myself with this kind of technique. Just darkening these up a bit because they're in front of the barn, and I just want to make them stand out just a little more. Darkening up that trunk at the bottom just a little bit. There's quite a bit of light and shadow on there. Right, okay, well, I was thinking about coming back in and putting some more shadows on this trunk here, but I think as it is, it's looking fine. Just worried about maybe another branch in there. I'm now looking at just at the pattern. Of the branches, not as they are in the photo, but how they appear in the painting. Yeah, there was just a bit of a gap in there that I didn't like. I still don't really like this hole down here. I feel it stands out and needs some. Maybe is actually a branch that comes off there. Kind of goes. Does that work? I mean, now I really am getting to the point where I could ruin everything. If it's almost working, it's harder to break, I think. Right, okay, well, I think a few more darks in here. I don't think the painting really needs it, I just fancy doing it. Just to give it a little bit more interest. One thing I do want to do, I don't like, this is too pale over here and it's annoying me. But I think the rest of it I'm good with. Okay. Well, that I think happened a lot more quickly than I thought it was going to. Let's just darken down this piece over here. I'm going to switch brushes to my 10 round. I just want to make this basically that value. So a little bit of ultramarine, permanent rose. I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna in there. Trying to get a reasonable colour. And don't want it too dark right next to that barn. I'm washing my brush out. Just soften the top there. Other thing I'm wondering about is, do I want to darken down the shadow? So again, it's the same purpley colour. It's not too dark because we've got a fair bit of value down there already. I think I might just put a little bit over this. I think it needs much. I just want a little bit of slightly darker, just a little bit of variation. That's better. It kind of, this is a nice crisp edge there, which I like. But it was, I wanted it to fade back slightly. And the last thing is I want this edge to come out. So I'm going to put some colour on this, and it's going to be mostly red. It's going to be kind of this colour in here, just to bring out the edge of that barn. I'm hoping I won't destroy that lovely shadow. And just pick up a bit of that colour. Okay, yeah. I'm happy. I think he's done. I think he really is done. Wow, that went very quickly. I might come back and maybe a little more dry brush in here, but I'll leave it a couple of days and see how he looks in a couple of days. But I think I'm good. Pink barn with blue roof.